Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Chisscast, the podcast where I, like Grand Admiral Thrawn, a completely normal and healthy amount. So today's topic is going to be Greater Good, the third book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, and this is going to be my review of it. Now, first, I'm going to do like a spoiler-free review, and then after that, I'm gonna go into all the spoilers and screeching and talking, and it's gonna be a mess. But at first, let's start with somewhat of an orderly fashion, because I know that, not everyone is as crazy as me and just, binges the book in one sitting. So, if you hadn't read it, here's a spoiler-free review. The first and most important point is Thrawn sexy. That is, I believe, the most important thing that you can hear about a Thrawn book as a Thrawn fan. Thrawn sexy, very good, very nice. 10 out of 10. Thrawn content was amazing. Now, this book, when other people said, and I've read a couple other reviews, when other people said that there was not much Thrawn at all, they were not lying. This is a Thrawn book with very little Thrawn compared to other Thrawn books that he actually appears in. Well, not all, but compared to some Legends books where Thrawn appears in, it's kind of like those in a way. In the sense that there's just so much other stuff going on that Thrawn himself doesn't get that much of a spotlight anymore. So that is a big thing. That's probably the first thing anyone will notice, and really everyone that I talked to, all the reviews that I've read so far, were saying that there was not a lot of Thrawn. So if you want to read this book specifically for Thrawn content, or his space battles, his tactics, just his character shenanigans, this might be a little bit disappointing, because there's people say that he's in 1/5 of the book, which I think is 1/4, 1/5 is pretty much accurate. And I'll tell you what I knew before I went in, before I go more in detail. Before going in, of course, I was on the hunt for spoilers. I was very excited for this book, and I had my own theories, my own, or rather wishes for who Chisscast is and stuff. And so I sought out spoilers without reading too many reviews, because really the only reviews that I care about are by fellow Thrawn fans, hardcore Thrawn fans. So I read a couple of reviews, and all the spoilers that I saw, or, I asked people who got the book early, I knew what happens at the very end, because somebody on Reddit leaked the last page of Greater Good, a week early. So I've read that, and that contained, at least 2 major spoilers. So I knew that was not a surprise to me going in, but if it hadn't been a surprise, it would have just, hit me very hard, because it was very sad. Also, I found out who Chisscast is because I deliberately, I specifically asked who Chisscast is, because I was just so curious I couldn't wait. So I asked a friend who had the book early, who's Chisscast, and so I knew that, so also that was not a surprise to me. As well as all the excerpts that Star Wars Books has published over the past 2 months. I've read those very excitedly and eagerly. So I knew a little bit more than, somebody who only read the excerpts, or somebody who just went in completely blind. So there were some things that were not surprises to me. That being said, plot-wise, oh god, I feel like, where do I even begin? There was so many things about this book. I think my main point that I'm gonna try to make is that if you like Chiss lore, if you've been craving Chiss lore for years, which I know that some of y'all have been, even longer than I've been in the fandom, you are going to love this. You are going to absolutely love this in terms of world building and lore. It's incredible. It's more than we've ever known about the Chiss. I think I wrote, I forgot to include it in the Goodreads review I wrote, but just like in Chaos Rising, except to a more grand level, the Chiss are no longer really that shrouded in mystery. Like for many years, like many literal real life years, the chiss have been like this very secretive species. The only people you really knew who were chiss were Thrawn and maybe a little bit of Arlani, but mostly Thrawn, and whatever other chiss characters there were in Legends. But those were usually characters who went into the wider galaxy instead of like you going into the Chiss Ascendancy. So now we actually get to see the inner workings of the Chiss Ascendancy. That's pretty great. Like, I've been in this fandom for like, 2-3 years, and it already feels like such a big thing. I can't even imagine how it feels to be a Thrawn fan for like 20 years and finally get to see what his home is like, what his society is like, how these people operate, what are their hopes and dreams, because we pretty much see everything from like the most average chiss people, like those ranchers that were mentioned in the dramatis personae that was posted on Del Rey Star Wars Twitter. The rancher family, those are like, pretty simple people with like, a simple life. We see their life, then we see like a regional governor's life and like what he wants and what his ambitions are. Then we see like a fleet officer who is a merit adoptive of one of the 40 great families. And that is the new character Lakinda that was like very heavily advertised by Star Wars books ever since they announced Greater Good. Like, we see what her motivations are and what she's like, and then like we see some more of like the syndics and syndicure and what they do, and then finally, of course, the Chiss expansionary defense fleet, which we are already pretty familiar with from the last book and some of Thrawn treason. So like we see every level of Chiss society represented. Also, another character, I think he was also mentioned in the dramatis personae, Yoponek. He's like a Chiss, a young Chiss guy. Basically, like he's taking a gap year with his girlfriend, and they are traveling the Chiss Ascendancy. So we get to see that too. It's pretty amazing how many different perspectives we see in this book. So like world building wise, this was incredible. But if you want Thrawn, if you're like, I want more Thrawn adventures, it still has Thrawn adventures, and it still has Thrawn being really cool and really smart and really sexy and adorable and also fucking insufferable as always. This doesn't have that much of it. Like the start of the book is really strong with that. We see Thrawn going on adventures, but then the story like veers away from him a lot and tells the stories of all these other Chiss that I mentioned, including the villains' perspectives, because of course what would be a Timothy Zahn book if he didn't include a villain perspective, or rather like one of the villain's underlings' perspectives. And what I've learned from this book, like in general, is that like you cannot make your villain the most hated character in a book. Like, you can't. You have to make your villain at least like somewhat intriguing, mysterious, almost sexy in a way, I talk about sexy villains a lot on my Twitter account, where I just don't shut up all day every day. I feel like saying it out loud as if this makes it any more official is really weird, but like honestly, like the main villain has to be sexy. Like, you have to leave the most hated character trope for their underlings. And so Timothy Zahn does that really well. I said this on Twitter, but Timothy Zahn is really good at writing like characters that are not villains, but that are so easy to hate. Like, you want to strangle them with your own two hands. And then he writes villains who are actually sexy and intriguing and cool, and you almost end up rooting for them. That's how Thrawn came to be. And, the one that I'll never shut up about, Nuso Esva, that was also a very, like, how can you hate that guy? He is so cool! Meanwhile, like in this book, characters like Hapleaf and Kilori, I cannot stand them. Oh my god. So yeah, I feel like Timothy Zahn is good at writing characters that provoke very vivid emotional responses. So, love that. I hope this is like non-spoilery enough. Like I'm not gonna go into more plot details until like I specifically say that there's gonna be spoilers, but yeah, if you want more Chiss lore, Chiss culture, Chiss world building, I definitely recommend this book. And if you're, a Thrawn fan in general, this is a cool book. I don't know how much reread value it has, like for me, because well, the way the way that I reread books is like if there's a part that's like boring to me, I will either put down the book or I'll skip it. So while none of the book was boring necessarily the first time around, I feel like the second time around there are definitely gonna be parts that I'm gonna be like, I don't really care about that. Since I listen mostly to my Thrawn books, like new canon Thrawn books, and since I listen to them because I really like how Mark Thompson does Thrawn's voice, I imagine that I'll gravitate more towards like Chaos Rising or Thrawn 2017 or Treason, where there's a lot of like Thrawn and, other characters that are pleasant to listen to. Also, I gave this book 4 stars on Goodreads, just because I wasn't impressed with it, like I wasn't like reeling from it when it finished. I was just like, that was pretty interesting. There were some solid things there. So that's why I wasn't like, I wouldn't give it the highest rating, but it's still a good book and I still recommend you read it if you're a Thrawn fan or Chiss enjoyer. Mostly Chiss enjoyer. So yeah, let's get into the spoilery bits. Okay, this is your last chance if you wanna turn off this podcast and not like hear any spoilers. This is your last chance. Okay, ready? Now for all those who wanna hear spoilers and wanna scream with me, Thras! Thras! Syndic Mithrasophis! Syndic Mithrasophis! Him! Yes, he. Like, he's still dead. Don't make no mistake. He's still dead, unfortunately. Like, the way that I screamed it, I feel like it might sound as if he's, like, come back to life or something. No, he's not. He's still dead. However, since in the last book we got literally, like, a grand total of 1 mention of him, I was like, okay, Timothy, that was a pretty shitty way to, like, just, like... I felt like it was sort of his way to say, here's 1 mention of Thras, now get off of my fucking back, you annoying ass people. Because I know like the diehard Thrawn fans are like big fans of Thras, and we all want him to come back to canon. Well, we wanted him to come back to canon. We wanted him alive, but we wanted him back in canon, but we wanted him alive. So now that he's back in canon but not alive, it almost felt like, Timothy Zahn being like, there he is, now shut up. But, however, he came through, our King Timmy Z came through with this book, and there was a mention of Thras at least 3 times. And even more than that, like the two, everybody's 2 favorite syndics, Sistalmu and Turfy, as I like to call them, they were talking about Thras, and I don't know which one it was, but they mentioned that Thrawn and Thras were close, which already, like, did they not know that Thrawn and Thras were blood brothers? Does that mean that Thrawn and Thras were not blood brothers? That is, it raises so many questions. Because every time we ask, like, official sources whether Thrawn and Thras are still related, they're like, let's let the books, like, speak for that. Which, fair, but also the books do not specify that. So unless Lesser Evil actually, clears that up, we don't know. And if Lesser Evil does not clear that up, You best believe I will be bombarding these people asking, tell us the truth! Are Thrawn and Thras still blood brothers? It is very important. I know that it's like, technically it's not important because, it's still family. They were still brothers, even if they considered each other like adopted brothers. But at the same time, the Myth family is like huge. The ruling families are like composed of like, I imagine thousands of people, maybe even more, maybe like a million or something. Or more, so like I don't know, like were Thrawn and Thras just really good friends? Jesus. Also, since Lakinda being Thrawn's sister theory is kind of out the window right now, because she was from the planet, I literally saved like 2 Chiss Ascendancy maps just to keep up with where everything is. Okay, where's that planet? So Lakinda was from Oyoko, which is a planet in the Ascendancy's west. And apparently it's like, once again, a backwater farming world or whatever. So since that's, the sister theory kind of gone out the window, which I'm still not sure if I want to accept. My next theory is that Thras is trans, and he was actually the sister that Thrawn talked about, but then he transitioned, and then, he's Thrawn's brother, and he was a Skywalker formerly. So that's my new favorite theory. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's a serious theory because I don't remember Timothy Zahn ever writing a single not straight, not cis person, but, what do I know? So, can't wait for Lesser Evil coming November 16th on Audible and ebook and Kindle and all the other places. I swear I'm not sponsored. I wish I was. But I already started my countdown. It's currently, as I'm recording this, 202 days until Lesser Evil. And since I do podcast episodes every few months, I didn't even get to talk about how Lesser Evil got announced before Greater Good even came out. And they're like, we're putting this out this year. Which is a whole another topic in itself, but let's get back on track with this with this review, with my thoughts and feelings on Greater Good. Oh, my head is spinning, Jesus. There's so many thoughts, so many things to talk about. This is what happens when you let me talk about my hyperfixation. I just don't know what's going on anymore. I just keep saying whatever comes to my head. So yeah, Thras and Thrawn were close, and also the speaker towards the end of the book told Thurfian, like the mean Chiss Syndic, like the bad Chiss Syndic, who's very mean to Thrawn, told Thurfian that he reminds her of Thras. Now, what kind of fucking insult is that? Tell me, how dare she? How dare she? How dare she even imply that son of a bitch is even close to being the absolute perfect, amazing, selfless angel that Thras was? Oh my god, the disrespect! The disrespect! Jesus. Oh my god, Thras Defense Squad assemble! So, oh god, I'm gonna forget what I'm talking about again. This is what I get for having my phone on my desk. Okay, so that was a solid 6 minutes of me screaming about Thras. So, still never fails to amaze me how I've had so many mutuals who actually asked me, who actually told me, I thought Thras just meant Thrawn's ass. I wonder why Timothy Zahn picked that name of all possible names. Especially for such a good boy. Thras is a good boy. I love him and I miss him. And, One hope that I really have for Lesser Evil is that Thrawn himself mentions Thras at least once, because so far everything that we'd heard about Thras was from the Syndics, really, which makes sense because he was their colleague, but also he was Thrawn's brother, or at least close friends if they're not brothers anymore. Uh, it still confuses me. So I hope that Thrawn actually talks about Thras at least once, because I mean, like, Thras died. Thras died, and Thrawn probably blames himself for it. So like, why would not he why would he not address it? So I hope that happens. Also, Lakinda. Like I said, both of my theories are dead, and like my first theory and hope was that Lakinda is gonna be Thrawn's sister, because like the moment that Thrawn mentioned that he had a sister and that he's never gonna meet again, instantly I was like, he's gonna meet her. Mark my words, he's gonna meet his sister by the end of this trilogy, and then or literally at the launch party, not the launch party, what was it called? The book launch event that they did for Chaos Rising. They talked about like this new exciting female character that's gonna appear in Greater Good. Back then it was book 2. So immediately then I was like, that's gonna be Thrawn's sister. That's gonna be Thrawn's sister. And so this book made a really good job at pointing out how she's, probably definitely not Thrawn's sister, because she's, well, Thrawn's from Rentor. She's from that other planet that I already forgot the name of. And she was, like, presumably adopted to the Zolak family from that world farming community. So that kind of went out the window. Also, the less of a theory and more of a wishful thinking that Jixtus is Nuso Espa also went out the window, because he literally identified himself as one of the Grisks, which makes a lot of sense, and I can't be mad about it. I really can't be mad about it, but at the same time, it's like, it's a little bit less, it's less impactful when you kind of like already know this enemy, and especially like, the Grisks are an enemy that like haven't really shown us how terrible they are. I feel like with enemies like Nuso Espa, basically kidnapped like these the governor's wife and daughter. I dead ass forgot for a moment what's the word for wife was. So so he like kidnaps people, he manipulates people, he treated Sorrow the way that he did, and like we can tell that Nuso Espa is like really terrifying. Not to mention what he did to the people of Quethold. I think that's how you pronounce it, probably. In Crisis of Faith, like you can see that he's real. He's the real shit. And so far, the Grisks were like, they're kind of faceless, and you can never see them. And it's like, okay, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. I'm not afraid of the Grisks. Like, for example, in the High Republic, not to bring up Marchion Ro again, but like, when you read about the Nile and Marchion Ro, like, you can tell that they're a real danger, and that they're not afraid to do horrible, terrible things, like, real horrible and terrible things. And I feel like the Grisks were like, well, Jixtus was just like being faceless and sexy, with a sexy, deep, exotic voice, as Timothy Zahn described it, and I feel like Mark Thompson really delivered on that. That was a really good voice. Definitely not as annoying as Yif the Magnificent. I'll never stop calling him Yif. I'm sorry. Just like literally the first thing that came to mind, like when I heard Yif, it was, oh, Yif, okay. So I feel like the voice, like so far Jixtus seems cool, but if he's a part of the Grisk, like, is he really that cool? I hope that we see like a really big threat from the Grisks in the future. And I know that also this is probably Timothy Zahn's way of setting up whatever he wants to write after like the events of Treason and Rebels and whatnot, because he did say that he would like to write a Thrawn book without Thrawn, basically like about the Ascendancy and Eli and Aralani and stuff. So I imagine even if Dave doesn't let him write Thrawn and Ezra adventures, which we're all hoping that he will, even if that doesn't happen, I think that Timothy Zahn will write more books about the Ascendancy, even, without Thrawn in them, because he set up the Grisk plot, the whole setting of the whole Civil War plot, and so far it's pretty much in line with what Aralani tells Thrawn at the end of Treason, that like the Ascendancy is on the brink of civil war, and also the Grisks are attacking them. And if Thrawn waits longer to return home, there might be nothing to return to. So I'm just really hoping that like the Grisk really ramp up their evil deeds so that we can actually fear them. Because my main issue with these new books so far, ever since Treason, is that there doesn't seem to be any real threat to anyone in the books. What do you want? Well, coincidentally, Tom just tweeted about the book launch that's happening tomorrow, which I'm definitely gonna watch because last time I missed out because I was so tired, because it's at like 3 a.m. my time. So this time I'm gonna watch it. I don't even care. I'm gonna drink iced coffee, panic attack. Drink iced coffee, panic attack. I don't know if y'all know that TikTok sound, but it's so funny. Last time I had an energy drink, I genuinely could not sleep until 5 a.m. because I was just too anxious, So, I don't know, maybe I'll have a nice Red Bull or something on Thursday so I don't fall asleep. Because yesterday I binged Greater Good and it was 16 hours long. So my ass woke up at 9 a.m. and I had to wait until after 10 a.m. For Audible to finally let me listen to Greater Good. So from 10 a.m. with a few breaks up until 3 a.m. I was up and listening to the book. And I was getting like sleepy already around 10-11 p.m. So that was an interesting experience. Also by the end, since I barely spoke out loud all day, when I started speaking, my voice sounded so weird to me. So basically, don't binge a 16-hour book in one go. Take care of yourselves. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, I was talking about how there doesn't seem to be a big enough threat. And I feel like Alliances actually did that quite well, like the whole tension, not just between Thrawn and Vader, but also just the way that, the Grisk kidnapped the girls and kept them in like stasis chambers. I feel like Alliances was the only new canon Thrawn book that really it really felt like the stakes are high. So as much as Alliances is my least favorite Thrawn book in the new canon overall, well, I feel like, after this one I'm not sure, but I think it's still my least favorite. That's not to say that I don't like it. I do love it. I love all Thrawn books because they're Thrawn books, and I like Thrawn a completely normal and healthy amount. But, for as much shit as I give Alliances for, like, not being as interesting as the other books, I feel like it did that one thing very well. And it was actually, like, you could feel the threat. So I want to feel the threat again in the future Ascendancy books. Also, literally, like that tweet that I just looked at that distracted me, said that there might be hints about book 3. So I'm very excited. Oh my god, I can't wait for tomorrow because I want to know everything about book 3 so much, especially since the cover is like that. It was literally like we were all losing our shit because Thrawn looks genuinely like given up and sad, and I'm like, no, no, our baby boy war criminal. But yeah, this book, I keep talking about other things besides this book. But yeah, this was really good. My favorite characters were, well, besides the old ones, I feel like Wu is my favorite side character because she's just so funny, and Mark Thompson gives her such a cute voice. I feel like she would be very fun to hang out with, and I love her very much. So Macro, of course, we all love our grumpy chiss, and I feel like with a lot of these like returning characters, I've had a whole year to fall more in love with them because of my friends in the fandom who made like content of them, and because of like people role playing them on Twitter. That was a really fun that was a really fun thing that we started doing this year. There's a whole Chiss roleplay Twitter like going on, and we're having a lot of fun. So I feel like all those things contribute to you falling in love with a character more than the source material itself makes you fall in love with a character. Because I can tell you that I looked at Samacro and Thalias and Wucho completely differently than I looked at them like in the first book. It was just like a whole new level of love that I had found for them. So they were brilliant. But back to the new characters. Lakinda was pretty great. Like, as you know, she was advertised very heavily by Del Rey Star Wars, like I said, ever since they announced this book. And I feel like she was pretty great. She kind of had like a voice, like in the audiobook, her voice was very eerily similar to Eli's, which at first threw me off, but it's something that you get used to. Also, I love Yeehaw accent chiss, and like all the Zolak family chiss pretty much had those like Southern American accents. That is so I love Yeehaw accents. I'm a whore for Yeehaw accents. They're just so adorable and endearing and cute and sometimes sexy in some ways. So it was just wonderful to listen to this audiobook. And I love the Chiss Rancher. His name I think was Lacfro, and he's just such a good Yeehaw dad. And he loves his wife and daughter so much. That whole family was so wholesome. And another thing that I noticed is that like because all those chiss were just like like they're written as people doing people things. It's like sometimes I forget to imagine them as chiss. Like I sometimes imagine a character as like human colored, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. This is the Chiss Ascendancy. So yeah, I absolutely love the Zolak and all the ranchers, and that whole section of the story felt really endearing. Now the section where the bad guy Hapleaf was basically manipulating these poor two young chiss into doing whatever he wants. It was interesting. It was really interesting, but it was also like, please leave these chiss alone. Also, that the chiss themselves, I feel like, were a little bit annoying, but that's kind of the whole point, because they're like children of rich people, and they're like taking their gap year and traveling around the Ascendancy, which I imagine not everybody can do. So like when a character is annoying, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's supposed to be like that, and it's good writing. So I feel like sometimes when people are like, oh, this character is annoying, it's like, maybe that's the whole point. Like, for example, when people talk about Ezra Bridger in season 1 of Rebels, and they're like, oh, he's annoying. Like, bruh, he's a 14-year-old boy. Of course he's gonna be annoying. Of course he's gonna, like, weren't you annoying at 14? I bet you were. We all were. So, I like, whenever a character annoys me, at least in the books that I've read recently, it's usually a sign of good writing. Of course, there are like books with like main characters that are supposed to be very cool but come across annoying. So I've been there, and I have to tell you the most memorable instance of that. I never even finished reading the book because the main character was just so annoying. I was like, no, I cannot stand you. So there are those cases, but in a lot of cases, especially in Star Wars, from what I've seen, like, if a character is annoying, it's probably like that's the whole point. So yeah, I really liked how I liked how some of the chiss resisted the like Hap Leafs and his other Agbui comrades like touch, like they resisted to be touched, mainly Lacfro and the chiss girl Yomi, who was Yoponek's fiance. And oh my god. First of all, I love how they use the word betrothed, because I think I've only seen that word used in like on the internet. I've never seen it used in a book before. Granted, I don't read many English books besides Star Wars. I don't read many books besides Star Wars in general, like aside from like history and like non-fiction stuff. Like pretty much the only fiction that I've read in the past 5 or more years is Star Wars. So, who am I to talk? But yeah, I love how Yoponek called Yomi his betrothed. And I think this is a good segue into my favorite chiss trivia, which I wrote a whole list of it, separately from my spoilers list. Oh god, I forgot that I had a whole list of like spoilery stuff to talk about. I have literally a 5-page Word document of notes from yesterday just from me listening to the book. But okay, let's go on to my favorite chiss trivia that I found out from this book. So first of all, chiss ranchers exist. Amazing, incredible, A+ content. Well, this is kind of a given because already in the Dramatis Personae, one of the ranchers was named. So it's not really like, deep chiss trivia, but it's still so nice. I just love this kind of like, farmer type characters. Okay, next, Skywalker trivia. Juice boxes! I think it was called like a packet of fruit juice. People were calling it like Capri Sun, but I've never had a Capri Sun. I've seen like juice packets that were not boxes. They were packets, but they're not as big of a thing here. So juice boxes, and little Shiri liking them is so adorable. I think the chiss officer Lachnum told Shiri, like, be careful, don't spill this on the console. And she, like, deliberately made a point to make a hole in the packet without spilling it and just, like, looked at him really sassily. I really like that. That was adorable. Also, I missed this one, but I've seen a couple other people point that out. Meat striped fruit squares is a food. What the fuck is a meat striped fruit square? And this once again like confirms my kind of crack headcanon that chiss food preferences are wild as fuck. Like, I always like to joke that Thrawn eats just like the weirdest shit. Like, we had a running joke on Chiss Twitter that Thrawn would like, there's I think like in like hotels or whatever, there's like a waffle batter machine that like you get waffle batter into a cup and you pour it into the waffle maker and you make yourself a fresh waffle. And we had a joke that Thrawn would pour that cup and just drink it. So yeah, I love that this is canon. We are now gonna just continue headcanoning chiss as liking like weird food and flavor combinations. Also, the farmers, the ranchers were eating fritters. So fritters are also a food that chiss have. And I think that's pretty cool. Also, probably the cutest thing in this entire book was the fact that Chiss birthdays are called star days. Isn't that adorable? Oh my god. So yeah, happy 30th star day to Thrawn, I guess. His 30th birthday is literally in like 3 days. Oh my god, I'm so excited. Are y'all excited? I'm gonna post so much cool art over the weekend. And also the Thrawn zine is coming soon, so it's very exciting. It's a very exciting Chiss season, probably the most exciting Chiss season that I've ever witnessed, and I've witnessed 3 of them so far. But we're gonna have another Chiss season in autumn, thanks to Lesser Evil. So can't wait for that. But since Thrawn's 30th anniversary is like this week, I feel like we're not gonna get anything as intense as this Chiss season. Anyway, back to trivia. Lakinda mentioned a type of dark cheese that the Skywalker on her ship apparently likes. And I don't know what dark cheese is supposed to mean, but what I thought of when I read dark cheese, my mind immediately went to apple cheese. Specifically Lithuanian apple cheese, because I googled apple cheese and apparently y'all don't have it. But apple cheese is basically pressed and dried like apples. I think it's like something like very concentrated apple mush, and then it's being pressed together like a cheese, and then you cut it like cheese and eat it like a snack, and it's just like, brown but just completely apple flavored, and it's actually really delicious. I highly recommend if you ever get the chance to try it. So like I know that it probably didn't mean that, but I'm just gonna imagine, for the sake of my self-indulgence, that the dark cheese is just like apple cheese, which would make sense. Like a kid would like that apple cheese more than like some sort of like fermented, very flavorful cheese. Those smelly cheeses. I know that I hated them as a kid. So yeah, it's really interesting to learn about Chiss food. That's always like my favorite question to ask. Is like, this alien culture or whatever, like what is their favorite food? Or about any character, like what does this character like to eat? So that's really interesting. Also, Chiss coffins are cylindrical. Because Thalias compares the hibernation chamber that the Magus is hibernating in to a coffin, like cylindrical, like as in cylindrical like a coffin. So apparently Chiss coffins are cylindrical, which I think is badass as fuck. Like, oh my god, I would like. Wait, I just realized it's basically an urn. An urn is technically a cylindrical coffin when you think about it. Well, it's not cylindrical, but like, sorta, Well, I guess, I don't know, my grandma's urn was like square, I think. But, for usually when I think of an urn, I think of like a very elaborate and ornate vase. So, yeah. This just got real weird real fast. Anyway, so I think that if human coffins were cylindrical, we would be like 20% cooler than we are. So get to it, technology. Another very important detail for any sort of like Chiss writing is that the ruling families have their own fleets, and when the ruling family is no longer among the 9 ruling families, they're forced to give up their fleet or like, decommission their fleet and like not have a fleet anymore. So yeah, that is a really interesting detail. Also aligns with Outbound Flight because Mr. Formby deadass came in with his whole family fleet and was like, "Where are you taking this Outbound Flight? We want it!" I don't know if that's how it actually went, but he definitely came to Thrawn with his own fleet and was very angry. Another one of my favorites was that when Chiss are excited, their eyes glow brighter. Like when they're happy or like thrilled or excited, because I think it was when Hapleaf was giving them either like one of the brooches or some information about the mining world. One of the Chiss's eyes, basically, like they were glowing brighter than usual. I think that's how it was described. So that was my headcanon, actually. That's why I really like it. I was headcanoning that whenever Chiss are very excited or like agitated or maybe even angry, their eyes glow brighter. So I like to see that me and Timmy think similarly. The last bit of trivia that I wrote down was that Chiss gap years are called wandering years. I think that's so cute. Also, the Wanderer song on the Greater Good playlist makes so much sense now that I look back at it, because there was a lot of like wandering in the book. There was like, the Chiss wanderers taking their wandering year. And then there were like the cultural nomads who were actually evil and terrible. That is still like, I question that so much, because how, like, Chiss are supposedly like very not alien friendly. A lot of Chiss are straight up racist, and they think of aliens as lesser than them. So tell me, how did the Chiss just let these random ass aliens just live on their world? Like, shouldn't he run this by the Syndicate, or at least by the Patriot or something like that? Because I'm sure they wouldn't really approve, based on especially like how they treated humans, both in Legends and in canon. Especially with aliens that they have no idea who they are. Like, I would understand if it was like one of their neighbors that they had like diplomatic relations with. But it was just a completely unknown alien species. Alright, so let's go from the top and see what's in my in my list of incomprehensible screaming is worth talking about. So at first we see Thurfi and Zistalamu like plotting, which is nothing new, but they're like, oh my god, let's start some rumors and get Thrawn to go after these aliens or like these pirates that may or may not exist. And then later, when that backfires and Thrawn actually comes back with something, with success, Thurfian is like, or no, I think it was Istalamu that was like, you know what? Actually, since we can't take him down, let's help him! It was literally so funny. It's like, these bitches are really out of options. But also, I definitely expected Thurfian to play a bigger role in this whole story based on this last page, and I genuinely thought that Thurfian was gonna be the one to kill Thoraki, which I think would have been really cool and spicy, and would have set up Thurfian to be like the secret big bad, like inside the Ascendancy, while the Grisk are the big bad outside the Ascendancy. So, would make a lot of sense with the whole like civil war and the Ascendancy being torn apart thing. But it's fine. I'm sure that Thurfian is gonna cause more trouble and lesser evil either way. So yeah, I think I talked about the fact that they apparently did not know whether Thrawn and Thras were siblings, which I think the myth should know. Like they should know, right? But also, I guess maybe they don't care. The myth in general, I feel like they don't care about Thrawn at all. I think I talked about. Did I talk about that in my Chaos Rising review? Like, the myth never show up for him. It's almost like they genuinely pretend that he doesn't exist. Except for Thurfian, of course, who deliberately wants to tear him down. Also, the fact that there was the Chimera decal on the Nicardoon ship that was stolen by the Pakash. I still don't know how to write that, but, Glad this is not a written review. So yeah, we saw actually the Chimera decal on the Nicardoon, like the stolen Nicardoon ship, which was interesting because it means that Thrawn deadass copied the design from that ship. It would have almost been cooler if he just took the design from the ring and was like, this would look really cool on a ship. But no, he actually saw it on somebody else's ship and he was like, well, mine now. Also, my comment about the mages wanting to sacrifice all 200 of her people was not the MILF being suicidal. So yeah, and the follow-up comment was, never mind, she's not a MILF, she's a GILF. I am so funny in my Word document, God bless. This once again was a funny section because the way that Thrawn was like, Thalias, you should talk to her. And Thalias was like, no, I don't want to, I am scared. And Thrawn is like, okay, I'll talk to her. And the magus was like, no, I want her. And Thalias was like, oh my god, I now have to talk to her. That whole situation just reminded me of when you and your mentally ill or neurodivergent friends are in the supermarket or just in general out in public, and you are in desperate need of help, and one of you has to go ask for help, but all of y'all are anxious or terrible at social situations, so y'all are like, so who's gonna go talk to them? So I feel like that situation just reminded me of that. Another thing that absolutely made me fucking holler was Thalia's trying to explain, like, she's like, oh, these creatures talk about something named the Beyond that, like, helps them apparently heal the planet, and she was talking about my third sight, and then someone says, the Force! And I'm like, oh my god, he said the Force! And then he says that Anakin Skywalker explained to him about the Force, which I completely forgot, because I don't really read alliances that often, but of course he did. Of course he did. And the fact that Thrawn tried to explain what Anakin explained to him, and Thalia's kind of getting it, but Samako being like, I don't get it. That was so funny. And also the fact that apparently the mages can sense that Thalias was a Skywalker once, which implies that they have still some lingering Force sensitivity, just not enough to navigate through hyperspace, which is lovely because I like the idea of the Skywalkers being like at least a little bit Force sensitive when they grow up, just like not completely losing it, so I love that. Now about the Thalias and Samako conversation, which was incredible, because once again, like, those two characters I really like started seeing like in a different light, not necessarily in a different light, but like I started loving them more, especially throughout like the past few months. That entire conversation was incredible, but the way that Samacro said, we're all resources here, and then he said, we hurt anyway, when Thalias was talking about like losing warriors in battle. And he says like I think it was said that he like some memories flashed before his eyes, and he said we hurt anyway. It was just, I want to give him the biggest hug. The grumpy man deserves the biggest hug. I love him so much. Also in that same conversation, Samako pointed out some flaws in the Skywalker program. I think, oh yeah, it was about the sleep cycle thing, which is another cool trivia thing. I forgot about that. That Skywalkers go deeper or more shallow in their third sight trance, similarly to how we sleep in cycles of like deeper sleep and more shallow sleep. And apparently that cycle in third sight is similar to their sleep cycle. And the fact that Thalias, she calculated when it is best to pull Shiri out of her third sight. That was very cool. And Samacro being like, well, I wonder why that's not like a standard practice anymore. So I really like that Samacro was raising these questions, and that's one of the reasons why I think that we're gonna learn a lot more about the Skywalkers and why they're not being taken care of by other Skywalkers, and what the fuck happened that made the defense fleet, decide that that the older Skywalkers, that retired Skywalkers, shouldn't be taking care of the younger ones. Like in the bribing the child with the dark cheese was really funny too. One of the funniest things in this book was Serthian, like at first he's like, oh, I'm Syndic Prime. I am the big bad. I am gonna ruin Thrawn's career. And then all throughout the book he's just getting sent to solve like farmer disputes and fish disputes. Speaking of like fish and birds and wildlife, I liked all of that trivia too. I liked the bird migration thing. I liked the beetle that apparently like sneezes on you and then you get poisoned and get sick. But apparently they don't bite Chiss very often, so that's Hapleaf's wife or colleague or whatever. She literally had to put one on poor Yomi to poison her. Also, in response to Serthian being on that cliff, was just fall, 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 fall. That's literally my note. Fall, 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 fall. I am right though, you know I'm right. He should have. The whole thing about Lieutenant Commander being the rank that, like, family blood relatives are given as like like this is not gonna get you anywhere rank. That was so sad because guess which rank Eli got promoted at the end of Thrawn Treason. That's right, Lieutenant Commander. Oh dear. I loved how Lakinda spent this whole time like resenting Thrawn for like gathering all the glory for himself and like always getting like into some bullshit. and then she manages to get her ass into even bigger trouble and actually has to get saved by Thrawn. We love to see it. It's like, girl, it's good to be ambitious, but it's not good to be stupid. Actually, it's great to be stupid. It's sexy now. My favorite Thrawn quote, well, one of my favorite Thrawn quotes from this book was, "The odds are never impossible, merely unfavorable." That is one that I'm definitely gonna remember. Thrawn just continued to be an absolute insufferable ass in this book. Actually, I wasn't going to tell them. When he was asked, like, the Syndicate is not gonna approve this. He's like, bitch, as if I'm gonna tell him. And then he manipulated both Smacro and Lakinda into not telling anyone about this. Oh god, I love that man so much. So yeah, when Hapleaf killed Yomi, I was genuinely shocked. That was like the one part of the book where I was genuinely like, oh my god! He did what? Another important thing, I think, to note is that Lakinda's character is the one that's supposed to show us the true, I don't know what's the word, like the divide between family loyalty and like loyalty to the Chiss defense fleet and the whole ascendancy. Because she's a senior fleet officer and her first and foremost duty is to protect her ship and serve the Chiss ascendancy, but she's also a part of a family who's trying really hard to get into the big 9 ruling families. So she has that pressure and sense of duty to them as well, and she actually has to choose later on, like, who is she gonna go help? Is she gonna go help Thrawn face an enemy, or is she going to answer this family emergency and go help them? So I think that her character arc in this book was pretty cool. Another point about Thras that I forgot to mention when I was screaming about him was that apparently, from what these people talked about him in this book, which was, pretty much just syndics, he was loved, he was respected, and he was, admired, he was a respected syndic in the Syndicate among the aristocrats, so that just warms my heart. He was just so good. I can't believe that we actually got more Thras content, because I genuinely believe that Timothy Zahn just put in that one line about Thras just to get rid of him. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about one of the most important things. Like, at least to me, as an avid Thrawn stan who has loved Legends books, even though I became a fan, when Legends was long turned into Legends. This book pretty much said that Outbound Flight is canon. It's canonized. Like, you can't say that Outbound Flight didn't happen. I don't like. Of course, like, the story would have to be altered because in the original Outbound Flight novel, it was like, I think it was just after Attack of the Clones, or no, even before that. So it was before the Clone Wars even. So, like, some adjustments would have to be made in the timeline, but the fact that Outbound Flight, like the vessel, the project, did happen, and that Chiss captured it, and that whole thing went down, is absolutely canon, and it brings me so much joy because I feel like, I don't know how much of his old books Timothy Zahn wants to recanonize, because I really want Nuso Eswa to be back into canon, but it feels like he's forgotten about him. No, Timmy, don't forget about the best Rainbow Bugman. But it seems like he really wants to recanonize, like, as much of his old stuff as possible. Like with Outbound Flight, he dropped hints. Like, he dropped one hint in Chaos Rising, and then here in Greater Good, there were at least two instances where it was talked about, and the Outbound Flight itself was referred to as, I think, large alien vessel from lesser space, and that Thrawn destroyed it, and that Syndic Mathrasaphus basically died. But it was also said that he disappeared. Well, once again, I feel like Zahn wants to. He said that Thras will stay dead to a fan at some point, and I believe that. Whatever. But also, where's Formby? Where's Formby? We miss him. We want him. We want our nasty yellow man. I really miss him, and I know a lot of my friends do too. So, Timothy, if you want to recanonize your old legend stuff, bring Formby back. And while you're at it, bring Nuso Eswa back because he's sexy. Jesus. How many times do I have to ask? Also, another very important detail, is that Thalias told Thrawn about what the Patriarch told her to do, which I didn't think that would happen, but it was a pleasant surprise. Also, just like, that, it has nothing to do with that, but when they talked about that, Thrawn sat on the couch, and I don't know why, but just like, Thrawn sitting on the couch is like, it brings me so much joy, and I don't know why. It's like, it's the little things. It's the little things he does. It just brings me so much joy. I love him so dearly. Like I said, I love Grand Admiral Thrawn a completely normal and healthy amount. So yeah, Thalias told him that the Patriarch asked her to look after him, and I think he said, I did not know that I needed looking after. And she was like, well, you need protection against your enemies. And Thrawn is like, well, I thought that my turbo lasers and plasma spheres protect me from my enemies. And Thalias is like, no, you dumbass! It's from your political enemies! So he was like, fine, I'm gonna tell you the secret, oh my god. I love that part. That part was really good. Another thing that I love, is kind of a love-hate relationship, is that throughout the past few books, including Treason, people, like, various characters keep guessing and speculating, like, how is Thrawn that good? Like, he has to get it from somewhere. In Treason, Grand Admiral Sabbath speculates that, Eli Vanto was, like, behind Thrawn's genius all this time. And here, Lakinda or somebody else is guessing that Thrawn got all of his tactics from Arlani. So it's a continuous theme of people being like, he can't be that good. Where did he learn all that from? And it's like, no, bitches, he's just that good. He's just that good. And when Lackfro finally killed Halfleaf, that was so good. Also, another very important thing, very important detail that I want y'all to know if you're a Thrawn stan. I don't know if y'all noticed. Like, I don't know if y'all noticed this. And it's very important to me to know if you did notice this, because I noticed this. So Halfleaf gets one of his arms, like, bitten by one of Lackfro's dogs, I understand. I wasn't paying attention whether it was like Lackfro's dog or wolf or whatever, but basically Halfleaf gets like one of his arms basically bitten and mangled before he dies, and that literally just reminded me of Formby getting his arm wrecked by the wolf kills in Survivor's Quest. So Formby parallels, at least that's the crumb that we got. Literally, you can tell how starving Formby stands are. We're literally like, this is the crumb that we have. This is the crumb that we have. And when Jixtus and Kilori were talking one final time, Jixtus said that pretty much the only way to defeat Thrawn was isolation and neutralization. I think that's a nod to what's going to happen at the end of Lesser Evil, which we know is that Thrawn is going to get fake exiled. Now, I don't want to say fake exiled because, like, we don't know, maybe it was actually a real exile, and that's actually kind of, like, my headcanon. That's, like, Thrawn kind of lied both to the Empire and to Knights One, because the Chiss did not want him in the Ascendancy anymore. So, like, they sent him on a mission far, far away, which was a mission, but also kind of an exile, but also kind of not an exile, you know? So the isolation aspect is definitely, it checks out. You know, he's gonna get dumped on a planet and be forced to, you know, basically assimilate into an alien government structure. Well, he's just supposed to scout the Empire, but he ends up where he ends up, as we all know. And of course, rest in peace, Thoraki, Grandpappy of the myth. He will be missed. He was so nice, and I had pretty much no doubt that he would die. And then that last page of Greater Good got leaked. And I was like, no! I actually cried that day. I think, like, I teared up at that. So, like, when I was reading it the next time, I didn't tear up, but it still stung when the speaker, I think, said that Thoraki passed away. But at least he, like, passed away in his home, surrounded by loved ones, you know, like, you know, the usual. But, like I said, it would have been so much spicier if Thurvian was actually the one who killed him. I think that would just add another layer of intrigue and malice and just fuckery that would be so delicious. So that's one of my takeaways from the book, is that, as always, it could have been worse. Like, in terms of stakes, the stakes could have been higher, the disasters could have been worse, because as much as I love this plot in terms of, like, how well it's spun, you know, there's so many characters and so many little plot threads that come together eventually. Timothy Zahn is good at that, but he's not always good at making the stakes high enough. Come on. As they say, come on, don't be shy, put some more. Put some more fucked up things in your stories. Come on, you're writing an adult novel. Make them suffer. Make them suffer. So yeah, that's my thoughts, DM, on Greater Good by Timothy Zahn, Book 2 of Thrawn Ascendancy. Do I recommend it? Yes, I do recommend it. However, be prepared, there's not a lot of Thrawn in it. So yeah, I had a good time. I had a good time talking about it. I hope you guys enjoyed my ramblings too. I don't know how many podcast episodes there will be this year, because lately I've been very busy with art, but I know that I will be reviewing The Rising Storm, which is a High Republic novel, that comes out late June, because I reviewed Light of the Jedi, and it would just be rude to not review the next one. And of course, later this year in fall, specifically November 16th, right? That's when Lesser Evil comes out. I'll be reviewing Lesser Evil because I like talking about Chiss. Also, let me know what you thought about this book. I am very eager to hear your opinions. Spoilers in the comments are very welcome. I want to know what you thought of this book, what are your expectations for the next book, and so on and so forth. So pour your heart out. I don't know if YouTube comments have a character limit, but I hope they don't. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for listening, and may warriors' fortune smile on your efforts.